Hello there. In the last episode, we talked about the heart, how it is important to have a pure heart when you're gonna die. And I had a very interesting dream, which I recorded an episode about. In this dream, I was reconciling two relationships I had with my, let's say, girl friends, not, you know what I mean?
Past
And
relationships.
yeah, relationships with girls. And in that dream, that was like the end of the world basically, because there was a nuclear war going on, and we were looking at the end of the dream at the map of like Soviet Unions for some reason, and in one moment, like one country was struck, and it became red on the map. And then we see like everything became like the whole world became just red from the bombarding. And I felt a heat wave. And I was like, oh, it's the end. So I ran straight to the corner of my room. I closed my eyes. I started praying so that just everyone around me was okay. That was my only concern at that moment. And in that, I felt very light. And I felt like I wasn't scared of death at all. So, as I was praying for everyone to be okay, my blackness from closed eyes became pure white. Like I was in a white room, or I was in the white light everywhere. So, like, even though I had no body at that point, I still was conscious. And the only thing that remained was the quality of my heart, which I left this realm in. So, as my heart was loving, I was in a loving place as I died. And from my understanding, from my studies, that's exactly what happens as a transitory phase after you die. That you go to like an emotional place, kinda, where you have to resolve your issues, emotion of the emotional nature. In Buddhism, they have Bardo. I think you go there to 40 minutes. It's like in Christianity, we have this place between hell and heaven
The
where many
purgatory.
go, and yeah, purgatory. And that's like a place in which your heart would be weighed against the feather. So yeah, I think
Ah,
like
like the
reconciling the
Osiris.
yeah. So that's what I think is very important in this lifetime, to basically just do a lot of good in the world and resolve everything that you screwed up. Say sorry to everyone. I think that if you can have this pure heart, then existence, just as it is, becomes wonderful.
Mm. It's like a paying off debt. I think that at a certain point, meeting anyone in our life has a certain connotation to karma. You either create karma with them or you pay off karma, like past karma. So, if you believe in a reincarnation, that we are here a few times, uh, the fact is that at a certain point, I think we did something to impact others, and maybe in this life, it is our duty to pay it off to others
Yeah.
in some way. But yeah, like you said, the pure heart, mm, it is something interesting because it is so easy to shut yourself off from the fact that, well, you are able to live your life purely, just because it is so easy and so profitable even to, well, use others, have them, how do you call it, make things or use them up, just so you yourself benefit instead of helping them. Because let's be honest, like it is so much easier to lie, it is so much easier to cheat, and it is so much easier to manipulate instead of telling the truth all of the time. I mean, any single person is guilty of this, I think. So even some things like white lies or warm lies, they do linger in you for quite some time, even though you weren't really ready, or you weren't really interested in saying something true in this very moment. And in a way, I think this is what conscious is like. It's reminding us that, well, we did something wrong. We might have said some things, we might have used, and some people have their conscious pushed back, pushed down, and I think they only reach it at the end of their lives, where there is nothing to, there's no power actually in your own body, in your own mind, even in your own heart, to repress it any further. And just as you ended up in this white room, well, those people that have their conscience repressed, they may end up in a place very different from it.
Well, that's beautiful what you said, but I've had this voice of conscience inside of me from a very young age. Like, when it became really loud, I think it was around 16. Maybe earlier, but I remember 16 as a period of life where I was screwing up so fucking much that it was hard to bear, it was hard to live. Because like I had a lot of trauma. I wasn't necessarily like liked by many people or anything. It was tough times, very lonely, and yeah. And in that time when I was doing bad shit, like horrendous stuff, because I was doing some things like that. One thing that comes to mind is when I went to psychologist with my mother, as she saw that I was cutting myself. So she took me to the psychologist, but I was telling her, no, I need medication. I need to go to psychiatrist. And she told me we were going to a psychiatrist. So I made this whole big fucking drama in the office of psychologist. First of all, I didn't go there for like 20 minutes. I was sitting outside as my mom was crying in the room. And when I got there finally, like I was like, okay, let it play it out. Then I just made this. I was like flaming each other with the psychologist, and then I went out of the room, and I went 5 kilometers straight to my home at foot. So yeah, that was something. And at that moment, I knew I was screwing up, and I did that even though I knew that. And this voice was just merciless against me because I saw what I was doing and I was still doing that. In Greece, for example, Socrates spoke about the same phenomenon. He would call it personal daemon. So that's a very close word to a demon. And that's very true because if you don't listen to your voice of conscience, which is the daemon, it becomes a demon that haunts you. And why is it doing that? Because for Socrates, he would tell him what not to do. And if he would listen, he would avoid disasters. And when he wouldn't listen, there would be disasters. That's exactly what is happening in our lives. If we listen to this voice of conscience that tells us what to do, how to behave, then it's just great. It will flow. It won't resolve every issue because there will be challenges on the path. But it's a great starting point at the very least.
In a way, I think it's our body communicating with us. It's like a voice that you have. So, in my case, like as well as you, I think that all of us have this conscious voice, but for me, it was mainly an internal dialogue. So, I don't know if many people have it. I do have a personal dialogue. And now that you've told me about this little voice that is speaking to you, it's sort of similar in my case, and I think it just kind of crystallized right now into this thought that maybe, in effect, in a way, it is your own body telling you what not to do. Because, well, you technically can direct your own body, but what about the body itself? What are its wishes? What are its...
Do you think it's body or do you think it's spirit? Do you think it's father from the father?
Oh, that's... I don't know. I feel like even since we occupy like three things in our, like, this place, so we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a spirit. I think the spirit itself is the, I guess, feeling something. How do you feel all of the time? Well, if you feel exalted, as in you enjoy life, you exalt yourself in this life, I think that this is a very, it is a state of being. I think a spiritual well-being is a state of being, whereas the actions themselves are bodily, so conscience-wise. These are your actions which speak to us, and then there is the mind, which is basically you and the way you speak, the way you act, the way you interact and share. So,
I see.
so it's
I
not
would.
not a
Mhm.
such a dualistic view, but I think it is only my opinion that when we do wrong actions, it is actually our body protesting because it doesn't want to do those things, and yet we are forcing it because, well, we might be scared, we might do X, Y, and Z.
Well, I might be more of a Gnostic. Believe that body is actually a source of much evil that we do. I think that the desires that are coming from our lower nature lead us to committing sins, but I would say that body at the same time has a divine aspect to it. That morality as a thing is kind of encoded into it. But from my opinion, like I like very much what you said about our let's say being split into three, but I think it's actually four. And I would say that the spirit would be something that watches, that is unchanging, that is like a fire that burns at all time and never gets extinguished. Well, the thing that would be of the emotional nature would be the soul, would be our feminine aspect. So you have like soul being feminine, spiritual, spirit being masculine,
So
spiritual.
the higher self.
Yeah. And mind would be like R, so that would be bodily, intellect, communication, things like that, ego. And body, yeah, would be the embodiment, would be the materialization of all of those forces coming down and resulting in you having this face that you have, as our face reflects the state of our soul, etc., etc.
Hmm. Well, I don't know, but either way, going back a bit, those actions. So I think that since it is encoded, like this state of action, state of being, well, we directly, indirectly influence our body. So, for example, if we do things which we find repulsive, and yet we continue with them, our body reacts not like immediately, but subtly over time.
Yes.
And I mean, you just feel it. You feel that if you do something wrong, it directly impacts yours. So, for example, the carnal desires, right? You've mentioned that this is the lower animal self. And that is true because, well, we choose to follow them in a way. Because
Mm-hmm.
so for quite some time I've been experimenting with this idea of well, not repressing it, those well, feelings, but rather letting them play out. So what I've noticed is they function basically the same as if with emotions. They are a wave. They are also a wave. So just as a emotion, there is an emotional wave which rises, crashes, and maybe sinks down, or just is like a, well, it's basically like water. No, it is very fluid.
Yes.
It comes and goes. So are our bodily well, needs in a way, right?
Desires.
With
Yes.
desires. So like with hunger, no, we start being hungry, and then we don't actually feed ourselves because, well, there might be something we have to do, and then it just like falls apart, right? This feeling of hunger because, well, you've signalized to your body, well, I don't want to do this. And same with sexual energy and like desire energy. So there is an object or a person of desire in this very moment, and the feeling in itself might be very intense. It might be even emotional, but over the time, when it passes, you start to think that, well, it was in this very moment that this person was someone you wanted, and then it subsides. There still might be attraction, but it isn't carnal attraction. It might be, you might think to yourself, well, of course they are pretty, but are they for me? Are they really the person that I want to? And suddenly, like, your own heart has this change of change of heart.
Yes.
You have a change of heart. So I've been experimenting with it for some time now, and yeah, it is sort of like it's both a decision from your mind and from your own body, because your body basically protects you from wrong partners. Even you might feel, well, either disgusted when being with someone you don't want, or you might feel shame, guilt, or all of those emotions that swell up after you spend the time with them. After they're gone, there might be like an emotional hangover or a bodily
Yeah.
hangover.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's your own actions, but there is this primal, this, I guess, divine consciousness of your own body that tells you and stops, well, you from directing its own path. I think there is a compromise in there. So, the body knows in a way what it wants, so who it wants or when it wants, and well, you can learn how to discern certain things, how to discern the right situations, how to discern the right moments, the right people, etc., etc. And in this communion, uh, you guys can start living the life free of the struggle of the mind and the struggle of the body, and while being in this equilibrium, the spirit itself is nourished.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love what you just said. You made me realize one thing about me. As I have this Capricorn nature, this Capricorn approach to the emotions, as that is my moon. Uh, I'm very practical about when emotions come. I'm I just seem to can't sit with them as they arise or with desires. Um, the very practical of Capricorn is that he wants to do something about those things. But with emotions, it's hard because, like, what can you do? If you do a practice to, like, get yourself out of the emotional wave, it will come later. If you uh, eat, for example, a lot to avoid the emotions you're feeling. They will come later. You will have to resolve them either way. So that's like my struggle. But I've realized that, well, if I'm that practical about them, why don't I have a set of practices or like a thing that I do to express myself, to actually deal with the emotions as they come in a more healthier manner? I've had
Well,
some glimpses that perhaps I should write like poetry when I feel emotions, as that's a way of release, or I should dance. But I never committed to that, if I have to be honest. Maybe you made me realize that I should try that. Thank you, Jakub.
no problem. At the end of the day, it comes down to one singular word, and it's patience. It's patience with ourselves. So all of those
Yeah.
practices that you're telling, what do? In a way, they kill time, right? Or they expedite the movement of time. So with poetry, it's straight from the soul. It's straight from the deepest parts of our spiritual center. And what do? You allow them to be mulled over very quickly in words, in some sort of a way. But at the end of it all, it's just letting them pass by, because as you've said, repression only brings more emotions later on. And from what I've seen, repressing them builds the next wave to be even harder and even
Yes.
harder. And if you start repressing it, all of it, eventually you yourself will not be able to uh, do anything about it, and your body will violently react. There was
Yeah.
this uh, uh, how was it? Oh yeah,
100%.
it's really funny because there was this horror series on YouTube. It was called Luxi, and there was this really cool, like I guess a theme throughout of it all. It was, if you yourself don't release, it will come and take a piece. And
Ooh, that's a good one.
it's so good. It's so good because, it simply tells you all. If you yourself don't release emotions, they will come and take a piece of you, of your own sanity.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah. That's exactly what I'm experiencing when I'm avoiding emotions through like short form content. Is that at certain point it's not even stimulating, and I go for a walk and I just cry. And I like walk for 15 minutes with tears in my eyes for the whole duration of the walk, and I'm just violently releasing all of that. Yeah. And then you're like so fucking tired because you just spent time not doing much, depleting your dopamine, and then this wave of emotions makes you fatigued even further.
Yeah. So it's a interesting balance, I think, for men especially. Being this rock which stands in front of the sea and the waves of emotions crashing, whereas for women it's easier to release them. They are much more of an emotional being. So for us, at least for me, what works is just, first of all, awareness, and second of all, the training of just patience with myself, because I pride myself in intense emotions. They are something to behold sometimes, and many of my friends which know me for a longer time know that when I explode with anger or with anything, it's really an explosion which makes an impact, and a lasting one at that. And when I started to train myself in this, I guess not a stoic, because it's more of just patient approach to my own emotions. Not only people say that I kind of radiate this, well, how do you call it, calmness, serenity, but I myself can trust that I will have clarity and I will do the right actions, just not in the now. And it's a constant thing. Is simply very similar to going to the gym. You have to have consistency and you have to do it all of the time because, well, those are emotions. They always come back, and sometimes it may feel really, really hard to get a grip on yourself in the midst of the storm, but it's rewarding afterwards. The clarity, the calmness, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, and I can tell you that what you just told me is very stoic-like, because there is a big misconception about how stoics are viewed from non-stoics. It's not actually about not feeling your emotions. It's actually just about not taking action based on your emotions as they arise. It's about saying, okay, here are emotions, that's data. What does it mean? Okay. So now my thought patterns are influenced in that manner. Should I behave on them? Most probably not. Okay, moving forward. What would be a action to take if I was not influenced by the emotions? Does that seem reasonable? Okay, yeah, let me continue with that. That's more so of a stoic approach to emotions, and it's very similar to what you described to me. So I just wanted to point that out.
True. And in a way, I think we all should look back to the well, the ancients, since
Yes, true.
it's funny because we are rediscovering what they already knew. It's like
Yes.
this spirit of anima that is just, I think in a way it's coming back. In a way it is sort of revivifying itself. There was, so the ancient Greeks themselves, they told of the spirit of youth which renews itself with each new generation. And even though they were living much simpler lives, I think in this simplicity there was this kind of freedom, and right now
Yes.
we really don't have it. It's like so Bab, Bronze Age pervert in Bronze Age mindset, he told about the idea of own space, and that really an organism which seeks to expand and seeks to live to the fullest first concerns itself with the mastery of space, and through this mastery of space does it only reach its fullest potential, and then later on can it actually think about spreading its genes. So like the carnal desire comes later on, only after the mastery of the space, only the mastery of yourself through a new space. And
Well, that's beautiful.
those carnal desires, right, they're not natural, actually. Because whenever you think of yourself, I feel the most calm in the mountains, right? I really
Mm-hmm.
like the openness, I really like perspective, and I really like when there's no people around. And what do you do in mountains? There's nobody else, there is only you, maybe your friends, and you yourself have to, push on through the ups and downs, the hills, the valleys. You yourself do it. You master the space around you. You push through it and you emerge, tired, yes, but how much satisfaction is there that you did the journey,
Exactly.
right? Right?
Yeah,
And you
because
feel yours,
there is nothing to hijack what you desire, what you feel. And in the current world, I think there's a lot of systems that try to hijack those faculties of ours.
right? And what comes next? Masturbation.
Clarity.
Oh, the
Post that
post-nut
clarity in
clarity.
that manner.
True, true, true. But like in this own space, when you have nothing to master, when everything is just around you, right? What do? Well, it kind of degenerates itself into this. Oh, I have to fuck. I have to masturbate and whatever. It's funny. It's funny because well, the more I am outside of the city and the more I do things which are different in a different space, not like this. Well, the city wise, it just feels better. It just feels better. I don't even like want. I don't even want to fuck with anybody. I just want to be and I just want to master everything there is about the elements. I just want to master myself going through it. And whenever I come back to the city, there is this like bitterness, I guess, in me that oh my god, I am back here. I am
Yeah.
back here, and again I will have to like fight myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's the jihad coming back because the jihad is the internal war, not the external war. Fuck, man, you're so on point with that. Because it's so fucking easy to just be and love life when you're outside of the system. But once you come back, as like you have to in a way, basically to just live, to make a payment every month, it kind of crushes your soul because everyone is hijacked. No one is true to themselves, not even us when we are in the system. And by that, you just interact a lot with falsehood. And it just takes a toll on you. People in ancient times would go to shamans who would be like healers, kinda. And imagine that they would come sick to the shaman to heal themselves from their living in a city, which at that time would not be very sanitized or very well for them, even then. And what would the shamans do? They would take them, wash them in the river, in a natural water, which is, again, amazing for you. They would walk barefoot on the earth, which again is very good for you. They would eat normal food. They would just live how we're supposed to. And they would get better. And they would get back to the city. And they would get worse again. And it was like that cycle of, getting yourself up for the challenge of being in the Babylon, being in it, and then resting outside of it. That's also how I view my life, and I try to live like that. That, okay, there is this job that I go to, but outside of this job, I'm a completely different person, and my life is completely different. There are almost like two masks that I wear, which one is me, just being me, and I try to bring it as much as I can to the job without being judged. So if you feel that you can be judged, you will hide parts of yourself. That's natural. And I don't think that escaping that is great because like it will make the experience worse of being there. So you have to kind of withdraw what you really are when you go to those places just to survive. And well, if you there are a lot of definitions of what depression is, but one that I really like is that depression is the time when you become so tired with wearing the mask of who you are not, so that you just don't want to live anymore because the falsehood of what you are not becomes too relevant of the time you spend existing.
Hmm. It's like personas that you wear,
Yeah, exactly.
and they are melting away. I think right now, throughout like everything that's been happening recently, more and more people like that I really speak with have been telling me how fake everything is, and those personas, those masks, are finally starting to wither away. And I think the only way forward to anyone at this point is just pure authenticity in what they do, in who they are, and people will not stand any longer, I think, for the fake heretics, for the fake masks, and for the everyone who is saying one thing and doing the other. So basically, the hypocrisy. And like just coming a bit back to those spiritual heroes. So the Greeks had like two words for a man. One was anthropos, but this was like a a run-of-the-mill person, just like a thing basically. It wasn't really a spirit of a man. It wasn't really what they envisioned themselves with the heroes. It was basically a person, just a human. And then there was Aner, and Aner was basically the embodiment of the spirit of nature inside of a man. So whenever you think Iliad and any sort of comparison of Hercules to sorry, not Hercules, Achilles, yes, to a eagle, to a lion. This was Aner. Aner was basically the embodiment of the freedom of nature inside the sphere of man. This is what the Greeks valued the most. It was the carefreeness, it was the exaltation of life. In a
That
way,
would be the. Mhm.
in a way, an animal, I think, all of the time feels exalted when it's out there. Because when you go to the zoo, you see broken down and sad beings. Uh, whenever I was in zoos, I would look at the cages and I was like, especially the birds of prey. I would look at them and I was like, this cage is too small for them. They cannot fly.
Yeah.
And you saw like not a panic, irritation, an anxiety in them.
Yeah.
And this is similar to people in like on spaces in like big cities. There is this anxiety which is bubbling. I mean,
Yeah.
when you are in it, you don't feel it. It just is there, and you're not aware of it, of what it is. It may be like depression, etc., etc. But this is the anxiety of a confined space. And once you realize, and you try and escape it or free yourself from its homogenization, you really see the irritation. You really see the anxiety of just being in a place which doesn't help this aner reach its full potential.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And in the tarot, I can tell you that we have a card that basically describes the same principle as you just said. That's the card called Strength. In the picture, you can see a woman dressed in a white garment closing up the mouth of the beast. And this path is between uh, mercy, so loving kindness, and strength or severity. And why is that important for our consideration? Because the true strength, the white garment, pure strength, comes from applying loving kindness with the discipline, with willing what you want, but those two forces that seem to be contradictory as severity and mercy really need to be applied in synthesis, and only in synthesis the harmonious balance of strength emerges for us to claim. So if you can will your life out of love, oh, that's great. And when you can be severe towards yourself out of love, oh, that's great, because you also need that. If you were only to apply mercy towards of your life, what would be the consequences? You would become lazy because you would be so understanding of yourself that maybe that's not a correct way of approaching it. That would be like flooding, as mercy is very ocean, like on the Kabbalah tree. So that would be a flooding, flooding. And what does flooding do? That basically makes, or what the water does. It basically, I can't find the word. That's like, not vegetation, but like when something spoils. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Uh, rots away.
Yeah, yeah. If there is too much water on the ground, everything will just rot away. And yeah, that's basically what happens when you have too much loving kindness towards yourself. Or if it's not applied in synthesis with severity. And on the severity side, it's very fire like. So imagine burning of a forest. That wouldn't happen towards your life if you just will yourself out of hatred, for example. If willing aspect of your existence does not come from love, but from hate to how your life looks, well, you're gonna burn away, and you're gonna burn away a lot of bridges and a lot of yourself in a process, which might be beneficial. You might need to burn away, but it also might leave you with nothing to yourself. And that's a tough place to be in. I was there. It's not very tiny.
It's not comforting.
Yeah, it's not.
In a
Because
way,
solid foundations are built from love, not from
in
hate.
a way, this card kind of symbolizes being comfortable in discomfort, right? Because
Oh yeah,
the situation itself is a woman holding a lion, right? It's not a comfortable situation to be in, but you sense a a mastery in it, right? A
yeah,
mastery.
yeah,
So from a place which is untamed, you become the tamer, and it kind of
yeah.
just plays into this ownership of space. So there is a space which isn't owned, and then you own it, then you master yourself. And when there's this pressure of the lack of the spirit, right? The lack of this burning fire inside of the people around you, you feel like you're in a wrong place, and this anxiety starts to arise. So I think that, well, the only transformation you can make for now is to yourself, and
That's the
either
only
becoming
transformation ever you can make.
true, yeah. And I think the only way that you can change the world is by influencing others. So either becoming an example, an authority, or some sort of a person that just logically can tell people that there is something more. And maybe well, transform it.
Also, the another part I didn't speak about is that you said Aren, right?
Aner.
Aner. So the Aner aspect of our being is also represented by the Devil card. And in that card, the beast from the Strength card becomes actually the Devil. That card speaks about the nature our body has, or potentiality to enslave us. Because on this card, on the Devil, you see two people with the chains, horns, and tails. So they are very beast-like. They are very far away from the card lovers, which is the card the devil originates from, or is like the second iteration of. And in that card, devil, the chains are very loose. The people standing there have free hands to free themselves because the chains are only on their necks. So that's exactly the story of your body has a potentiality of enslaving you, but you have a potentiality of taking away your chains and actually using it how it is used in the strength card to generate infinite amount of power, infinite amount of strength. as represented by the sign she has over her head.
Well, and with that, I think we might be ending this episode. So, well, if you have finished here with us, there's the section at the end where we basically market our own services. So I'm doing human design readings. It's a very, very practical system which basically tells you how to best prepare yourself for living the life according to the actions of your actions and the ones that your body wants. In a way, you harmonize yourself and remove the resistance that you might feel in your own life.
Yeah, and it's very powerful system. I will say that. I do tarot readings and I do coaching, type of coaching, where we really try to resolve the issues you have stemming from shadow or rather trauma that you have, to basically free your faculties to make them not hijacked anymore. So that's what I do. Links in the comments.
Yeah,
That's it. Thank you, Jakub.
and I gotta say, like his readings of tarot, profound, really. And with that, we thank you for this episode and see you, well, next time.
Next time. Bye.